Mr. Yunus Barada, who left us 2 months ago. So Mr. Yunus Barada and I met during the RU Forum annual general meeting, and I couldn't think of a better occasion to pay homage to him and thank him on behalf of everyone who knew him for all his effort and kindness. We all wish he was here with us among us today. Thank you, everyone. So Henry Ford once said, if everyone is moving together, success takes care of itself. And that's why the summit needs our input to ensure and build a future that is strong, safe, and fair for all. One of the major RU Forum objectives is harnessing capacities for strengthening agriculture development and food system in Africa. And to do so, RU Forum is convening dialogues to raise awareness and elevate public discussion. Could I just ask everyone to put off their mics so that we cannot find an echo, please? Thank you. So, to do so, RU Forum is convening dialogues to raise awareness and elevate public discussion about how reforming our good system can help us to all achieve sustainable development goals by implementing reforms that are good for people and the planet. This dialogue is critical to the summit success. Today, and on behalf of the RU Forum teams, I would like to welcome you to the pre-UN Food System Dialogue for North Africa and Middle East. This session is an opportunity to engage in the summit in a very meaningful way. The dialogue aims to respect a healthy diversity of point of view, encourage shared exploration, and reveal promising ways of working together. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will leave the floor to my colleague Sarah, who will present the program and also the logistics during this session. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Zainab, and thank you for the tribute. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. My name is Sarah. I'm a pedagogical lead at Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, and I will be taking 5 minutes to explain to you the logistics and the program. So we're very humbled and very proud to be moderating this session and to be spending this 4 hours plus with you in the pre-UN Food Systems Dialogue. Before kickstarting the opening session, I would like to kindly remind you to keep your microphones on mute if you're not speaking and participating to the conversation. If you're speaking, we would kindly ask you to activate your camera so that we could interact with you better. The chat is available to host your questions, and during the sessions, feel free to raise your hand at the end to ask questions. And my colleagues Zainab and I will be harnessing the questions and asking them at the end of each session or each introduction if the time allows. One last logistics remark is the interpretation is available in Arabic and 2 other languages. And should you have any technical issue, please feel free to notify us in the chat box, of course. So as I said before, we'll be together surrounded around this virtual table in a pre-UN food system dialogue. In our program today, we are going to kickstart 6 different sessions. We're going to start with an opening session of 1 hour and 10 minutes, where we're going to hear from different statements from different representatives that are going to enlighten us with their insights in order for us to open the session. Then we're going to move into an analysis of the current situation of food systems in North Africa and the Middle East. We're going to be speaking about the policy implications and the role of trade and regional integrations through different papers that are going to be presented to us by notable speakers. Then we're going to invite you into more focused discussions through different breakouts groups, where we're going to again dive into food systems transformation and see what the research and innovation that is happening and the different arrangements, be them technological or institutional, that are being made in order to strengthen the food systems. I highly encourage you to have a look at the program in order for you to decide which breakout room better you'd like to take part in. So you'll be asked to join whichever room you wish to join. So we'll be breaking out for 30 minutes, and you will directly be sent back to the common room for us to directly carry on the feedback that is going to be brought to us for 20 minutes by the rapporteurs of each breakout session. Then finally, we're going to proceed to a closing statements by representatives of the Secretariat of RUFORUM and the AOAD through Dr. Duqueri. So without further ado, I'll leave the floor to Dr. Adipala to give us a background on the UN Food Systems Summit. I'd just like to reiterate my thanks for the opportunity to be moderating this forum. It is always a pleasure and a pride to work alongside you, Dr. Professor, and the different representatives of RUFORUM.
Well, hello, Sarah, Zainab, colleagues at Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, all colleagues in Morocco, all colleagues in the Arab world, and all global colleagues attending to these dialogue sessions. We feel greatly honored to have you join us in this dialogue. At the onset, I would like to recognize the partnership with the Arab Organization for Agricultural Development, led by His Excellency Professor Duqueri. I also would like to recognize the participation of the African Union Commission. I would also like to recognize the participation of all other institutions that have responded to this dialogue. With those remarks, allow me to share the screen for my presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can see my screen, but permit me to say that today we are holding part of a series of dialogues that RUFORUM, a network of African universities, has been facilitating across the continent and with global partners. Today we focus on North Africa and the Middle East. To start us off, allow me to briefly introduce RUFORUM. This is a regional body founded by African universities to support, to galvanize participation of African universities to support development in Africa, especially agricultural development to address the issues of food and nutritional security. It provides a platform for universities in Africa to network among themselves, but also to network globally. It provides a platform for the universities to undertake joint resource mobilization and also country-specific resource mobilization. Importantly, it provides a platform for mutual learning so that we learn from each other, but also for advocacy, for support to higher education in Africa. It also aims in rationalizing the resources that exist within the continent in terms of taking advantage of the comparative advantage of some institutions in Africa to build capacity for the rest of the continent. Third, and fundamentally, it aims to galvanize partnership to ensure quality graduate training for development actions within Africa. So it's a platform for universities to work and leverage from each other's capability for working together and supporting development. We initially started as a network of 10 universities in 5 countries, mostly in Eastern and Southern Africa. Today, we are operating in 38 African countries across all the 5 geographical regions of Africa, and we have a membership of 129 universities. Our focus has remained: 1, harnessing capacities for strengthening agricultural development and food systems in Africa. 2nd, working together to support improved productivity and resilience of especially smallholder farmers system. Thirdly, we have a focus on promoting partnerships, and this particular dialogue is part of the effort of promoting partnership between African institutions and the wider Arab world. Ladies and gentlemen, the focus of today is on the United Nations Food System Summit. All of us, and really building on the message from the United Nations Secretary General, realize that as a global community, we have agreed on achieving 17 Sustainable Development Goals. But it becomes imperatively clear that to achieve that, we need to deal with 3 fundamental issues, among others. 1, of ending hunger, and associated with that, addressing the issues of malnutrition, and more importantly and more recently, we need to give attention to ensure that we have sustainable systems and systems that are resilient, especially to climate change and other variability. As part of this process, it is a hope that we'll come up globally with a set of actions, but we are also advised that in whatever actions we agree on, we must ensure there is inclusivity in the actions if we are going to have effective delivery to achieve zero hunger in the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, the UN Secretary General has put in place a processes that I think many of you are aware about. He has established a scientific group. They have identified 5 track areas for which he feels we need to give focus attention to. Third, he has established a team of what he calls champions to mobilize the global community to participate in this dialogue. The forum happens to be one of those champions. In terms of processes, there are 3 major tracks. 1, holding national dialogues of various stakeholder groups, but also holding global dialogues, as I will explain a little bit later. And thirdly, holding independent dialogues like the one that the forum is convening with other partners today. The 5 tracks, many of you are aware. 1 is ensuring access to safe and nutritional food for all, basically achieving zero hunger. The second one is trying to shift to sustainable consumption patterns globally. We are beginning to have really changes in our consumption patterns, but we need to make sure that they are sustainable and that they are healthy, they protect ourselves. And then the other one is taking care of the environment under which the food systems operate. We need to look at the sustainability of our ecosystems. The soil function, colleagues in Morocco will know that it's very, very fundamental that we strengthen the issues of soil fertility and nutrition. But in all this, we need inclusive policies, be it in terms of participation, be it in terms of welfare and other issues. Finally, we need to deal with the issues of vulnerabilities, shocks, and stress. Make sure our systems are able to be strong enough to overcome some of those shocks. Now, why is Reform engaged and how is Reform engaged in this? We are a network of African universities with a focus on the issues of food security. So invariably, participating in this United Nations Food System Dialogue just falls into what is core for us. But I think globally, and all of us, we must eat food, ladies and gentlemen. We must keep it healthy. So I think it is fundamental that we participate in the dialogue that are dealing with the issues of food systems, nutrition, and associated things. So as a network, we are focusing on encouraging the participation of African universities especially, but also other institutions to participate in the national, regional, continental, and also global dialogue. We would like to make sure that our institution, and I'm hoping that University of Mohammed VI, that you have had discussions at UM6P, but you have also engaged with other stakeholders in Morocco, just as you're engaging with us for North Africa and the Middle East. This is what should be happening everywhere. In Oman, Egypt, Sudan, all of us, we need to engage in those dialogues. But then there are also streams that have been set up by the United Nations. We also need to be part and parcel of that. And Forum is supporting that. In terms of some of the actions, we have convened a global meeting for African, for youth across the world, because in whatever systems that we will need to come up with, the voice and perspective of youth will be important, as will be the perspective of especially the smallholder farmers. Second, we have convened a meeting of global higher education, research, and agricultural advisory services that was attended by representatives from across the globe. Third, Forum as a network is also engaging with policymakers, because it is important that whatever views, whatever recommendations we come with, eventually the policy decisions become fundamental. We have, as a forum, had a convened meeting of government technocrats from various ministries across Africa. 2 days ago, we have had a meeting of African ministers of agriculture, higher education, science, and technology, because food systems issues is multi-dimensional. It is does not only affect ministries of agriculture. Next week on 17th, we are going to have what we call, meet with a team of what we call key advocates for global development with a focus on Africa. It will include current and some former leaders. Finally, on 1st of July, this will be of the convening that Forum is making. We shall be having a summit of African heads of states to receive perspective from African universities and from some of those others that are the stakeholders that we have engaged with. As part of this process, Forum vice chancellors have already issued a statement towards the United Nations Summit. 2 days ago, African ministers considered that statement and have endorsed it for presentation to the UN Food Summit. So what is my expectation of today, ladies and gentlemen? One, that we will be hearing from us from various parts of North Africa and the Middle East, various perspectives, so that we get sort of a sense, get sort of an assessment of the current status of the food systems in various states, and what are some of the underlying challenges and opportunities. Out of that, and from the discussion which you have already had, and I'm hoping from this meeting, we will also be contributing to coming out with recommendations for addressing the 5 action tracks that the UN General Assembly is seeking for input. Thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that we will hear your voices and messages for key commitments and actions that we would like to be considered by the UN Food System Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Sokrat.
Thank you so much, Professor, and thank you so much for your time efficiency. We're right on track with your intervention. I think there is something that we share with the whole people present and the different speakers, that we appreciate the partnership with Forum, and we appreciate the work that is being done by the network, and is a true pride to be parts of the network. I'd like to emphasize on the fact that this is a dialogue, so the questions and answers and the different interventions from the people present with us today are more than welcome. Please, if you'd like to ask a question, raise your hand or write it in the chat box. And if you're not presenting or intervening, we'd kindly ask you to keep your mic on mute. Thank you so much for the mouth-watering future interventions that are going to happen after this session through the dialogues and different summits that are going to take part in the future. Zinab, without further ado, let's introduce the following statements.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Prof. Adipala, for the insights. It's always a good opportunity to recall the mission and objectives of RUForum. So agriculture has a vital role within the region's economy in Arab world. And in this framework, the Arab countries recognize the need for coordination between their different policies in agriculture, natural and human resources, as well as the economic development. And in order to achieve the ultimate goal of a fully integrated Arab economy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Prof. Ibrahim El-Dukhari, the General Director of the Arab Organization for Agriculture Development, who will tell us more about it. Mr. Ibrahim, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Raed Hattar. I am the Deputy Director General for the Arab Organization for Agriculture Development. I am attending here in behalf of Professor Dukhari. And first, please allow me to convey his deep apology, sincere apology for not being able to be with us due to the sudden death of his father-in-law, which has forced him to leave Khartoum to out states where internet services are not available. I'm going to state some of the main points that His Excellency was going to present in this dialogue. As the world is working to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, many have recognized the key role of food systems in achieving most of the SDGs goals. Food systems are not only critical in ensuring food security and improvement of nutrition situations, but they are also important in achieving social, economic, and environmental goals as well. However, many of the world's food systems are fragile and vulnerable to crisis, as we have seen it during the COVID-19 pandemic, which has threatened our agriculture activities, health education, and the whole economy and businesses, as well as human rights and peace, in addition to the food security. The UN Food System Summit 2021 will be a great gathering and opportunity for us to facilitate the achievement of all the SDG goals and Agenda 2030. Agriculture and food system transformation stand on the top of the priorities of the Arab Organization for Agriculture Development strategic objectives stated in its 2020-2030 strategic plan. And therefore, AOD has joined hands with all other partners to achieve this goal, and in the early preparation for the upcoming UN Food Summit 2021. Jointly with our partners, we organized several regional consultations to determine the pre-pathways for changes in the Arab region. These consultations was done with ASQA, World Food Program, FAO, and many other colleagues and institutions in the area, working in the area. And I believe that Dr. Fideli from ASQA will give us some briefs about the outcomes of these dialogues. The African Universities Forum for Capacity Building in Agriculture is a strategic partner for AOID, as 10 of the 22 member states of the Arab League are African countries. And this partnership supports the Arab-African Partnership at the level of the Arab League and the African Union. We expect from this consultative meeting on North Africa and Middle East to find clear pathways for some complementary areas that we believe it will strengthen our previous suggested interventions at regional levels. These include technological arrangement, digital transformation, value chain advancement and entrepreneurship, institutional arrangement, policy arrangements, and engagement of different actors. And finally, financial arrangement. I thank you very much, and I am very happy to be with you, and I wish the dialogue all success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raid, and thank you for representing Dr. Lukhari. We're very sorry to hear about his loss. Please convey our sincere condolences.
Thank you.
Just as a kind reminder, feel free to ask your questions in French or any other language that feels suitable for you on the chat or by raising your hands. We are going to hear from Dr. Bahigwa, who is the director of the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Development of the Africa Union Commission in Ethiopia. Dr. Bahigwa is passionate about supporting regional economic communities and African Union member states to implement and formulate policies and programs to transform Africa's agriculture to improve food security and nutrition. We're looking forward to hearing from you, Doctor, on your insights and inputs on these regional dialogues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Very good. And thanks to Professor Adepala for inviting the African Union Commission to make some remarks at this important dialogue for North Africa and the Middle East. On behalf of Her Excellency Ambassador Josepha Sako, the Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment, I would like to bring greetings to you from her, and she wishes all of you fruitful discussions. The UN Food System Summit is a people's summit, and as such, the dialogues are meant to capture the views of everyone, not just the professionals, but the views of everyone. And Africa is a large and diverse continent, both in its peoples and their culture, but also in the agroecological zones in which we live. In the context of the UN Food System Summit, therefore, the game-changing solutions will be a mixture of both general or common solutions to entire ecosystems or regions, or they will be specific to some countries or regions because of the diversity of our continent. I want to share with you that the African Union Commission, working with the AU Development Agency, are working on developing an Africa Common Position for the UN Food System Summit under the chairmanship of the chairperson of the AU Commission, His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, and of course, the Commissioner and the Chair of the Specialist Technical Committee, agriculture, rural development. The African Union Commission, working with NEPAD, like I've said, we are working to develop this position by collecting as many views from stakeholders on the continent as possible. And we intend to capture these from national dialogues, the independent dialogues that Professor Adipala was talking about, those that are being convened by Reform itself, from civil society, from academia and research institutions, from farmer organizations, private sector, to mention a few. And as Adipala mentioned in his last remarks, all people in the world have an interest or should have an interest in this food system summit, whether they are conscious about it or not, because we all eat. It is therefore important that the dialogues under the UN Food System Summit capture the views of the unusual stakeholders, those that we do not normally interact with along the food value chain. This is very important to capture their views. We would like to thank Reform for organizing the dialogues within its network of universities. The universities across Africa, the Middle East, and indeed the rest of the world have some of the best brains in the world, and they undertake cutting-edge research and training. Therefore, we expect to get from you some of the most innovative ideas to help Africa and the world to take action to deal with the several key challenges that we are facing. Those include food insecurity and malnutrition, rural poverty, especially for smallholder farmers, food import dependency, especially for Africa, where we import about 45 billion worth of food, and that figure is expected to rise to 90 billion per year by 2030. We should not be dependent on food imports. That is not to mean we should not trade with others, but we should be a continent that aspires to be self-sufficient in food. Addressing the impacts of climate change, especially droughts and floods, that are increasing both in frequency and severity. Addressing land degradation and declining soil fertility, and dealing with transboundary pests and diseases. In the last 3 years, we had the fall armyworm across the continent. We had the desert locust, especially in the eastern and horn of Africa. Then we have the global COVID-19 and so on. These are some of the key challenges that are facing the world and especially Africa, for which we are seeking solutions to address permanently. I would like to request Reform to share with the African Union Commission the outcomes of this and other dialogues that it has facilitated, so that we can capture some of the game-changing solutions into the Africa common position. However, I must caution that your proposals should be evidence-based, because we want solutions that are proven to make significant contributions to transforming food systems. Evidence-based, game-changing solutions. Finally, moderator, the process of adopting the African common position has a formal process that we follow. It will culminate with holding a meeting of the ministers responsible for agriculture, rural development, water and environment in July for them to discuss and endorse this common position. With that, I would like to thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you, all of you, productive discussions. Shukran Jazil.
Thank you, Professor Godfrey. So again, this dialogue will offer to each of the institutions here present a very powerful opportunity to debate, collaborate, and also take decisions towards a better future. So thank you again for representing the African Union Commission and sharing with us these solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to remind you that if you feel more comfortable in doing this your presentation either in French, in Arabic, please feel free to do so. We have translation available at this Zoom window. Our next speaker is Mr. Momodou Lamine Cissé, a global lead development specialist at the Islamic Development Bank. So Mr. Momodou has more than 35 years of work experience in various agencies, including 8 years of working in the UNDP and UNINV program officer in Angola, Yemen, and East Timor. So he is with us as a representative representing the statement from Islamic Development Bank. Mr. Momodou, the floor is yours. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. First of all, I would like to thank you all for the warm invitation. Our sincere thanks goes to the Professor Ibrahim Adam Ahmed El-Bukhari, whom we understand is not here with us today due to the loss of his father-in-law. He give a heartfelt condolence in that regard. Professor Ikwamu, please excuse me for my pronunciations if I happen to pronounce your name wrongly, who is the Reform Executive Secretary, representative of the African Union Commission, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Firstly, I wish to express IDB's sincere appreciation to the Arab Organization for Agriculture Development for the invitation extended to His Excellency Dr. Bandar Hajar, IDB President, who could not join us in this gathering due to prior commitments. Nonetheless, IDB's participation is indeed crucial, and that is why we are here today. Madam Moderators, following the WHO declaration of COVID-19 pandemic on March 11, 2020, most Islamic Development Bank member countries in Sub-Saharan Africa and Asia in particular put in place emergency and response plans to address the impact of the pandemic outbreak. Some of the member countries, including Chad, Mauritania, Niger, Senegal, Yemen, and Djibouti, to name a few, declared state of emergency and announced several measures to respond to the pandemic. Such measures include partial and full-fledged lockdown during the first and second quarter of 2020. Although the pandemic, the COVID-19 health implications were immediate and clearly visible, the pandemic has significantly disrupted the global food system in an unprecedented manner. Consequently, the Islamic Development Bank, working in close collaboration with its member countries, has put in place contingency measures aimed at minimizing severe disruption of food security of the people in all its forms: availability, accessibility, affordability, and utilization. Such plans were put in place against the backdrop that all its member countries are likely to feel the effects of this existential crisis and the pandemic is creating globally, and therefore the problem of food insecurity was likely to be magnified in majority of the member countries. To this effect, Madam Moderators, the bank further took giant steps on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on food security and agri-food industry, and therefore provided recommendations to member countries to mitigate the impact in the short-term response and medium-term restore. To further consolidate the bank's support to member countries, IDB has allocated $2.3 billion to preparedness and response packages to address their immediate and long-term needs in order to avert the impact of the pandemic. In specific terms, IDB provided around $445 million to support 30 countries in Africa to avert the impact of the food shortage caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The above measures were in alignment with SDGs 1, 2, 3, and 8, while having its interlinked with other SDGs. In December 2019, the board of the executive directors of IDB has approved the bank's agriculture and rural development sector policy that provides a platform for synergy with the IDB group to bring about the desired development impact while minimizing the efficiency. The sector policy was built on 6 main pillars, of which building resilient and climate smart agriculture draws a great attention. Madam Moderator, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, it is worth mentioning that IDB's several interventions in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic from late 2019 could only be achieved through working with other MDBs and international development agencies, such as the African Development Bank, World Bank Group, IFAD, FAO, and the World Food Program in enhancing food security and food self-sufficiency, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. The ISDB's commitment to serving its member countries, especially those in sub-Saharan Africa, was further demonstrated through its participation in the recently convened high-level virtual dialogue on Feeding Africa, Leadership to Scale Up Successful Innovation, jointly organized by the African Development Bank and the IFAD in partnership with the African Union. At that meeting, Madam Moderators, His Excellency the President, Dr. Bandar Hajar, announced the IDB's intention to invest $3.5 billion in developing the agriculture sector in Africa in the next 3 years. These investments are intended to develop commodity value chains for both staple food and cash crops, a major strive towards achieving Sustainable Development Goals 1 and 2, among others. Madam Moderators, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I once again seize this opportunity to convey His Excellency Dr. Bandar Hajar's thanks and appreciation for the invitation, and hoping that the subsequent interaction between our two institutions will further consolidate our relationship. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for your audience.
Wa alaikum salam, Mr. Sisay. Thank you so much for your intervention, and thank you for representing the Islamic Development Bank. And we're looking forward to see the seeds that we are planting in these dialogues flourish into different types of projects. We're really good on time. Thank you so much for your efficiency and for the efficiency of all our speakers. To close this opening session, we have with us today Mr. Fidel Biringiru, representing the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. Mr. Fidel, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, and thank you to the organizers. And of course, we would like to extend our sincere condolence to our dear colleague, Dr. Al-Duhairi, for his loss. I had drafted a few notes. I thought it was supposed to be more of a technical presentation, but I had to transform it to turn it a little bit into some kind of speech. So anyway, what I wanted to say is that the Food Systems Summit comes after a long process that started many years ago, back in the 60s and even before, aimed at improving the food situation, to promote agricultural development, to improve rural livelihood, and to promote an integrated rural development, and so on. And this process has continued to reach the issue of food security, and then later on the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goal, and then more recently the Sustainable Development Goals. Food security is now embedded into those sustainable development goals, and to some extent the food system is also comprised into those SDGs, given their wide reach. However, all over these years, there have been some major inconsistencies, of course, as you might know, because so far, most of the attempts to achieve food security do not seem to agree much with other goals, including, for example, the goals of ensuring sustainability, especially the land is being degraded at a fast rate. Fishes, overfishing is a big problem. Greenhouse gas emission, agriculture is a major contributor. And the water use, of course, agriculture is a major use of agriculture, and water tables are falling all over the world, and especially in the Arab region. Cropping occupies close to 70% of grassland habitat, and it's a leading cause of deforestation. Despite all this, it does not seem to abate poverty, which is SDG 1, or inequality, SDG 10, and justice, SDG 16, and several other SDGs, especially in regions like Africa and other developing countries. But despite this, food security is a wide goal, but a multi-goal approach is really necessary, despite the few achievements that the world has so far been able to achieve. So we're not sure how to achieve this, and we're hoping that the Food Systems Summit will bring some new clarifications on how to move forward. But in the end, we need to achieve food security without impacting much the other goals of the SDGs, meaning we have to produce more food, but with less land, but using less land and less land degradation. We have to improve technical efficiency. We have to reduce losses and waste, change our behaviors, both producers and consumers, and other actors. And we have to reduce the environmental impact of food production through regulations and incentives. And of course, most importantly, especially in the developing world, you have to uplift the farmers so that they could boost production and help them access markets, access inputs, and seeds so that they could develop their low impact agriculture, which is basically the aim that this food system summit should aim at. So far, it has not been easy, but the world will still try, and most probably at some point we'll reach a point where we can say we have achieved it. As Dr. Ekwamu said, the food system dialogue have, a lot of food system dialogues have been held all over the world in the hundreds. And they have involved multiple stakeholders, multiple actors, at multiple levels, from farmers to policymakers and so on. At the regional level, quite a few dialogues have been organized by all the 5 regional commissions of the United Nations, those from Africa, the Arab region here, the Asia and Pacific region, Europe and North America, and then Latin America as well, and the Caribbean. In the Arab region, we have organized a few dialogue, as Dr. Rayad said, with additional partners, including the FAO, WFP, WHO, IFAD, and of course AOED, one of our main partners in the region. The dialogue have been aimed at the youth, other stakeholders, including ministries, academia, research, private sector, and specific industries, as well as international organizations. To capital, the major dialogue was held during the side event, as a side event during the Arab Forum on Sustainable Development. Among others, the key highlighted, the dialogue highlighted the need to transition towards a healthy food, to optimize sustainable production in the Arab region and to advance equitable livelihoods and to respond to risk and hazards. There are many recommendations that were made, as Dr. Rayad had said, but there were so many that I couldn't pick some without minimizing the others. So that's why I'm stopping here. But now the aim is to try to harmonize these aims with the other regional commissions so that we could have a single voice during the summit. To this end, we are preparing a policy brief outlining the views of the 5 regional commissions. The 4 major areas we have identified, which are basically go along with the action track, are improving good health and addressing malnutrition to end hunger, the need to promote sustainability of resources, the need to emphasize inclusiveness and equality, especially for smallholders, and then the need to emphasize on resilience, on achieving resilience, so that issues like COVID-19 or other shocks like conflicts which are prevailing in the Middle East could not hamper that much the food system, the working of the food system. So this common approach by the 5 regional commissions will be presented at the pre-summit in June, and hopefully as well as the full summit later in the year. And of course, it has yet to be finalized. So your viewpoint and suggestion are always welcome. Those are the key points I wanted to highlight. Thank you again, and thank you, and I look forward to the discussions. And thank you again from the Executive Secretary for the invitation, as well as our Director, Dr. Rura Majdalani, and Rib Nejdawi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fidel. And before moving forward, I should first of all thank you all for the opening statements you just have made. So the strengthening of the global food system depends on collective effort and the engagement of citizens and institutions of all over the world. So thank you again for all. Thank you again for all your effort and all your statements and every insight you have given until now. We will, I think Francis will put a video to introduce the second part of this session, which is the situation analysis. So Francis, the floor is yours.
Your Excellencies, colleagues, and friends, as you know, last year the UN Secretary General called for a Food System Summit to unleash the power of food to drive progress across all 17 United Nations development goals. I thank you for stepping forward to become a leader for the food system's change. These dialogues bring together people from all parts of society to share evidence, experience, and new ideas. Food is powerful. The food we eat brings us together as families, as communities, and as nations. It underpins our culture, our economies, and our relationship with the natural world. The world's food system touches every aspect of human existence, which makes them valuable instruments of change. The reason we are having a summit this year, and the reason we're here today, is because we are off track. We are not set to achieve on our shared vision and goals for the 2030 agenda. Our food systems have staggering levels of inequality. Our key priority for this summit is to bring more inclusive, equitable, and healthier food systems while also safeguarding our planet. These dialogues are a core element of the summit process. They are an opportunity to come together and identify priorities and actions to be taken for a better future. This will be a people's summit, but it will also be a solution summit because everyone is part of the food system. We are looking to get all of you and your ideas around the table to ensure that action is owned and driven by different actors. We want action to be driven by you. Your leadership and ability to have courageous conversations rather than avoid them will be very critical. If we can't have courageous conversations about what needs to change and how we need to work together, then we won't be able to go very far. We need each of you to determine the food system you want for your future and to act on it to make them a reality. We must do this understanding fully well our place in the world and that what we do as individuals impacts others. I look forward to working with you in this summit process. Together, we can build a world of inclusive growth, environmental sustainability, and social justice. We can build a resilient world where no one is hungry, no one is poor, and no one is left behind. I thank you.
So you see how it works now.
Thank you so much, Francis, for this reminder of the agenda of the UN Food Dialogue. Please allow me to remind you to keep your microphones muted if you're not participating. And again, I would like to extend our thanks to the different parties for their statements, and we really acknowledge your presence and you speaking in our opening session. As Dr. Bahigwa said before, we're all looking forward to the evidence-based solutions and ideas that we're going to be presenting and discussing through these pre-dialogues and these regional dialogues. But before, we clearly need a situation analysis of the food systems that are currently available in North Africa and the Middle East. And we are directly going to start with an analysis of the current status with Dr. Rami Zourek, who is the director of the Food Security Program at the American University of Beirut. Professor Zourek, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am, of course, elated to have been invited to this wonderful, to join this wonderful lineup, and I will share my screen momentarily, just to make sure that you can see what I have to say. And of course, it is difficult to add anything to what has come before. I hope that you will find what we have interesting, especially that the order is pretty tall, to analyze the current status of food security in food systems, in the MENA in 10 to 12 minutes is quite a challenge. So before I move any further, I would like to acknowledge my co-worker, Mr. Abdel Karim Yahya, who is a research assistant in our program and also a PhD candidate at Kassel University, and who has contributed to preparing this, which is in fact a very, an excerpt from the work we've been doing over the past year in developing the state of food insecurity report of the FAO for the Middle East and North Africa, which was under the general theme of the resilience of food systems in the MENA region, as well as the background documents that prepared for the dialogues for the Food Systems Summit. And so therefore, what you're going to see will draw on both these different and important documents. Before I move any further, we talk a lot about food system. Let's agree what a food system is for the purpose of our presentation today. And I like to define food systems as socio-ecological systems because they work at the interface between people and nature. And these are complex systems which have biophysical and social factors, and they're linked with feedback mechanisms. They have systems components, and in fact, they are systems of systems. You can see the picture that I have here on my screen. I only put it to tell you how complicated it is. Do not be afraid. I am not going to go through every single one of those components and explain it because I will need a year, not 10 minutes. But however, the negative feedback and the positive feedback mechanisms are going to be very important, and we need to understand them. We also need to understand what drives that food system. We also need to know that once they are affected by shocks and by stressors, these are different things, but also no time to get into that. They respond to those shocks and stressors, and our job is to try to predict how they will respond and to avoid that this response be disastrous. A simpler way of framing this is to use this food system framework. This is the one that's commonly used by the high-level panels of experts of the World, the World Committee on Food Security. That's been developed by Jess Fanzo and colleagues, which we also have adapted a little bit. It has some interesting things. I'm not also going to go through all of it. I just want you to know that there are external drivers, and they are very, very, very diverse, but they really cover pretty much everything. There are also constraints, which are different from drivers. You could think of them as negative drivers just for the sake of our conversation today. But the important thing is that you have 4 different components to these systems that lead you to an outcome. Think of it as a car, you have the engine, you have the wheels, you have the transmission, and you have the gear, the upholstery inside. So these systems together, they make a car, and the car takes you from point A to point B. And here you have the food supply chain, of which agriculture is only one small part. It's an important part, but it's a part of it. This is not everything, because you have also the entire, importing and processing and packaging and retailing, and all of this is under the food supply chain. Then you move into the food environment, and that's, that determines very much the physical availability and the affordability of certain products, but also who's selling them, where are people selling them. The closest to this is the availability, dimension of food security. But then importantly, not everybody is affected by the food system in the same way. Hence, the issue of equity, of social justice. And because we have individual level filters. So these are economic, but they're also cognitive. Do we know about healthy diets? Do we not know about them? These are at the individual level. And close to the individual level, but not the same thing. You have the behavior of consumers. And these are influenced by culture, by other, social issues, but also by the availability of physical components that can help us, fridges, electricity, etc. These food systems, when they operate, they define our diets. And after they define our diets, there is an outcome. One of the outcomes of the food system is food security and nutrition. But there are also economic outcomes. People make money out of it, social outcomes, and environmental outcomes. And we have heard of all of these outcomes a minute ago. So those outcomes, we need to remember all the time that the food system is a system of systems, and that it has outcomes. And its sustainability and its resilience is in how these outcomes operate. And these outcomes, of course, feed back into the same drivers. So the region in here, and I have, I've used as a drawing this wonderful book that I co-authored, and I recommend, a little bit of publicity is never bad. That conflict and crisis and conflict in agriculture, and so precisely because conflicts in our region are a very major driver. That's not the same in Europe, for example. But in our region, this is a major driver. Demographic growth, rapid urbanization, climate change, and water scarcity, and slow economic transformation. I am sure you recognize each one of these, and I'm not going to go into explaining them. There is a Q&A. I would actually go through it if you want to, but you would acknowledge with me that conflicts and demography and rapid urbanization, very quick change in the way we consume and the way we produce, and water scarcity, climate change, as well as very slow and the negative, in the case of Lebanon and other conflict countries today, negative economic transformation are going to be important. Let me share with you, that's my only graph today, but I like this particular graph because that's here on this y-axis. I have an index of political stability and absence of violence. And I didn't make that up. I don't like the term terrorism in here, but this is what the index is made out of. So the more you go towards the positive, the better the situation is. The less political violence and conflict you have, and the closest towards the negative, the more you have. And this is the prevalence of undernourishment. That's an SDG 2 tier 1 indicator, and therefore pretty good for the purpose that we do. And you can actually see that rich or poor, because Iraq is objectively rich as a country, and Yemen is objectively poor as a country, although it could be very, it could be very rich. Sudan, Lebanon in here, you can see that there is a direct correlation between political stability and the prevalence of undernourishment. And that is a point that cannot be made sufficiently, because what it tells us is the first step that we need to do in this particular region is end conflicts. Now, the constraints that I talked about, which I call negative drive, that you have constraints in agricultural production, and these constraints are not only biophysical. We're in a resource challenged, I'm not going to say poor, challenged region that we haven't used very, very well. And there are people on the lineup today that can talk about this very well. But also the policy environment hasn't been very conducive to using those resources well as well. Be it in terms of our approach to agricultural development, being in terms of the subsidies that have been offered, the type of subsidies and where did they go. All of these have not been very, very good for agricultural production, or at least the type that we can sustain while remaining within the planetary boundaries. Then we have constraints about technological development and adaptation, and there is a strong part of these that's politically dominated, politically inside, but politically outside as well, in terms of geopolitics and the facility of transferring technologies. We have a big problem in the region, big constraint to the food system in terms of food losses and waste, a problem in terms of food safety. We have some of the most, most worrying figures when it comes to food safety. Tremendous constraints when it comes to the affordability of healthy diets. Having operated a nutritional transition, we find ourselves in a situation where people consume unhealthy diets, and where unhealthy diets that are imported are more affordable than healthy diets that are produced locally. That's something that should ring a bell somewhere. Also, some of the constraints, again, are some systemic shocks. By systemic shocks, I mean shocks that affect every single component of the food system, which include the spread of violence and conflict, but also natural disasters, very prone to drought, regions that are very, very prone to droughts, naturally so, not only human-induced droughts, naturally so. Human-induced droughts come on top of all of that. And of course, epidemics such as the COVID-19 pandemic, which I will talk about a little bit to just illustrate how we can use the food system to analyze and to map. Now, the outcome of the food system, and I'm only going to talk about the food security and nutrition outcomes, but remember that there are social outcomes, environmental outcomes, and economic outcomes to all the operation of the food system. Now, as a whole, as an outcome of the operation of the food systems in our region, we're not on track to meeting the SDGs target. Only 8 out of the 22 countries, and you can imagine which 8 these are. I'm talking here predominantly about resource poor but financially rich countries of the Arabian Gulf region are projected to either meet or nearly meet those targets. Now, we need to also know that our countries, they have a very significant rate of poverty and food insecurity today, and that the prevalence of undernourishment has increased. We have gotten worse among the Arab populations in the past 5 years. Now, today, just to put a figure on this, nearly 160 million Arabs are food insecure, 43 million are undernourished, and 115 million are obese. Talk about stuffed and starved. The region has also a very high level of child stunting, very worrying, wasting, and not unimportantly, women's anemia. Even in the rich countries, I would even say, especially in the rich countries. Now, undernutrition and the deficiency of micronutrients in children under 5 years of age are of particular concern. Second highest prevalence of obesity and overweight after the Americas in the world, especially in the Arabian Gulf. The policies, as a summary, if you look at all of this, what does it tell us? It tells us that we have a problem, yes, in the natural endowment, but we have a very important problem in the policies that support the food system. Our government's policies have failed the population when it came to the food system, because our subsidies, and I'm sure the next speaker will be able to talk even better than me about this, because I know Clement's work. Yeah, they favored energy-rich, stable food production, but did not promote nutrient-rich foods and healthy diets. Now, let me illustrate how we can use, this food systems approach, because we keep talking about food systems, but it needs to be operational. It needs to become materialized. How do we use it in order to understand, to map the way forward? So the COVID-19 pandemic is a good place to start in order to understand what has been going on. And that the COVID-19 pandemic affected everyone, but that the intensity of the impact varied tremendously between conflict and non-conflict countries, and between rich and poor countries. Within the same countries, of course, it varied between rich and poor, as you probably have heard everywhere. But the impact was very strong. The losses, 1.2 trillion estimated, probably more till today. The expectation that about 7 million workers will lose their job. Fears of unrest that are associated with the food shortages, increase in food insecurities, like the 2008. However, this did not happen. I mean, we have this fear in today's Lebanon, but that comes from something that goes beyond the particular food system. But because the countries are the largest food importers in the world, these impacts, the impacts that have affected the global value chains, have resounded more strongly internally. Now, to analyze the country's responses, we have used a food systems approach. And I'm not going to go in a lot of detail because of time, but just to show you how countries have responded. So the countries in the Arab region have responded first at the level of the first component, at the level of the food supply chain. And these are some of the examples that have been done. For example, Algeria and Qatar have implemented a very aggressive import strategy. UAE, Kuwait, KSA, Algeria again, and Egypt have improved local productions and logistics. Some countries have restricted exports. Others have diversified trade partners such as Jordan, Egypt, and Qatar. And therefore, we can see that when it came to addressing the problems associated with the COVID's impact or with the shock's impact on the food system, countries have moved immediately into addressing the food supply chain component. Some countries have also worked at the level of the food environment. Some of them at the level of the individual level filters. And for example, the food environment changed in certain countries because of the work of civil society that has distributed food, and especially to vulnerable families. In other places, Qatar, Tunisia, for example, there has been laws and policies that were meant to stabilize food prices. So that was also a way to approach the crisis in a food systems, stepwise or component-wise approach by addressing the food environment. However, there has been very little work done downstream. So we haven't looked at all at anything that had to do with diets, anything that has to do with consumers' preferences, no attempt to use the entire pandemic to provide people with healthier diets. This has not been part of the policy, or if it has been, it has been insignificant compared to the go-to solution of everyone, which is address the food supply chain. But food security is not only the food supply chain. Food security is the health of the people who are consuming food. And as we've seen before, the problems of the Arab world is that it is both stuffed and starved. And if you only address the stuffed, you're going to still have morbidity. You only address the starved, you're still going to have a lot of morbidity associated with the people who are overtly obese. Other issues that have not been clearly addressed are the social inequalities and the environmental damage that have been associated with this increase in production and increase in the desire to provide food for people. These disease-inducing diets have been promoted, and this can cause more problems than others. Now, if I want to summarize in a nutshell, in this particular instance of the COVID-19 shock, and a food systems analysis will show us that the Arab response to the crisis limited themselves to the convenient elements of the food system. But these are not enough. We need to go beyond the convenient one, the one for which we're prepared, and address all the different components. Because if your car has stopped, you cannot only fix the tires, you also need to look at the engine and at other components of it. And we also need to look at the different components outcomes of the food system if you want your food system to operate sustainably and in resilient fashion. I have been involved recently, and this has been, this has been part of the conversation before, in the preparation for the Arab Food Systems Dialogue. We produced, Abed and I, the main document, and in this virtual room, there are a lot of people who were part of this dialogue. Just wanted to note that there has been a consultative process. Others may be able to talk about it that have addressed all the different action tracks. And we have used our learning from our food systems analysis in order to contribute to that. And two key messages, which echo what Agnes Kalibata has just told us in her video, we're prominent in here. There were much more messages, but two were very important. One of them is that everyone that has attended has understood and recommended the adoption of a food systems approach, which acknowledges the inter-system link. And the other one is that the transformation is a responsibility that involves partnerships in all sectors of society and cannot be left to one sector alone. It is our job, all of us, to understand and work and operate in the food system. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Rami. Indeed, feeding our growing population with a sustainable, healthy diet is a global challenge, but in the Middle East and North Africa region, this challenge is particularly complex. So thank you so much for presenting the actual current situation of food system in North Africa and Middle East. And I think also it's very important that you have presented the framework to the food system, the framework of the food system for a better comprehension. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Dr. Mariam Raouf, Senior Research Associate at the International Food Policy Research Institute, EFPRI, who will present the policy implications of the mega trends in food system in North Africa and the Middle East, on behalf of Dr. Clemence Bressinger, who couldn't be among us today due to a major commitment that came up last minute. Dr. Mariam Raouf, the floor is yours. Dr. Mariam, your microphone is on mute.
Yes, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to join you today. Shall I share my screen, or you will be presenting the presentation from your side with managing?
You can share your screen.
So my presentation today will focus on an overview of the MENA region chapter in the Global Food Policy Report that is published by IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute, and it's for 2021. And we will discuss the beyond the pandemic and transforming the food systems in MENA after COVID-19. First of all, sorry. First of all, this crisis, despite it's a crisis, it's a health outbreaking crisis that the MENA region is facing. However, this crisis provides an opportunity to support more the food system transformation especially when we target the goals of the food system transformation, as it is shown here in this chart. The main goals of the food system transformation is to ensure health, resilience, inclusiveness, sustainability, and efficiency. As you all know that all the MENA countries, they are struggling with this outbreaking health crisis, but also they are facing other crises. Either they are oil exporting countries or oil importing countries. For example, the Gulf countries, they are facing the low oil prices. Other countries are in conflict like Syria, Libya, Yemen. Other countries like Sudan, for example, they are facing macroeconomic imbalances, like high inflation and severe deterioration in their local currency. Also in Yemen, for example, there are some natural disasters like the flooding and the swarm locusts in Sudan. Egypt, as an oil importing country, is a stable one with some strong economic fundamentals. Egypt has started to implement its economic reform program since 2015, and it has finalized the stabilization phase of this economic reform program. And this relatively strong fundamentals has enabled Egypt to provide a stimulus package that has helped to mitigate the negative impact of COVID-19. Also, the MENA countries, they are highly relying on food imports. So they are more vulnerable to changing or the increase in food prices and also to any trade disruptions in the world trade. The agri-food system makes around 25% of GDP in many MENA countries, like the graph shows, in Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and Tunisia. So as a result of the COVID-19 crisis, the agri-food system has shown some resilience in some countries, but it has varied across the different countries in the region. For example, in Egypt and in Sudan, the agriculture remain the least affected sectors out of this crisis. In Egypt, because of some restrictions during the partial lockdown that has been applied in Egypt, there was some value chains, agricultural value chains that have been negatively affected, especially, for example, the dairy products in Egypt due to these restrictions on the mobility. While other subsectors, like, for example, medicinal and aromatic plants, they enjoyed a substantial boost as a result of an increase in the export demand of these commodities. While in Jordan, for example, it is highly dependent on fruit and vegetable exports, and the agri-food system has been affected severely in Jordan due to some fall in exports, and also because of some labor restrictions, especially on the mobility of foreign workers in Jordan, because many of them did not receive the renewal of their work licenses. So Jordan has been affected negatively, especially with regards to the agri-food system during the COVID-19. In Yemen also, there is the food system. It was hurt by the conflict, also as a result of the decline in remittances and floods. In Sudan, there is both the low-cost crisis and the macroeconomic imbalances. They have damaged the agri-food system. Also in Egypt and Jordan, they are highly relying on tourism. That's why the sector of food services that reflects mainly the tourism and restaurants, it was negatively affected, as shown by the graph. And all of this had its negative repercussions and negative implications on the household income that has fallen in the many countries, notably Egypt, Jordan, and Sudan, it has fell by an estimated 8% in Egypt, 20% in Jordan, 15% in Sudan. But if we look more closely to the quintiles, and either they are in rural or urban areas, we can we concluded that the urban households experience greater absolute losses than the rural households. However, rural households usually can find it harder than a wealthier household to cope with this crisis. But in order to mitigate this negative impact of the crisis, many countries in the region, especially Egypt, Sudan, and Jordan, they had established, or they had been intervening by increasing the spending on social cash transfers. Like in Egypt, for example, they expanded the number of people who benefits from the social cash transfers, like what we call in Egypt takaful and karama. Also in Sudan, they have increased their social safety nets by giving some cash transfers to people who are unemployed. For example, they designed a program called Silati, or My Commodity, to provide people with basic commodities. And also in Jordan, they give like allowances for unemployed or for seasonal workers. So the increase on the social cash transfers, its main target was to mitigate the losses in the household income in the region. So what about the outlook for post-COVID recovery in the MENA region? The results of the study that we did for the Global Food Policy Report has shown that the agriculture and agri-food system, they are well positioned to support the region during the post-pandemic era and post-conflict socio-economic recovery in MENA. Countries in conflict and political transition, however, like Yemen and Sudan, like they need large-scale external support to rebuild their macroeconomic stability, design and fund the investment packages and safety nets. While countries that have undergone macroeconomic reforms, for example, Egypt, they need to move forward on sector-specific reforms such as fertilizer subsidies or future-proofing the food system to be resilient and sustainable in a changing climate. The post-pandemic recovery provides an opportunity for many countries to address its growing food important dependence by integrating in the global markets and reaping the country's domestic production potentials. Also, the focus on implementing more future-oriented public investment, providing institutional reform, and digitalization is a key for raising the potential of the agri-food system. And the example for this is like the digitalized sectors, for example, food deliveries, deliveries have been less affected by the crisis. Also, now in Egypt, for example, they are thinking about establishing the digital extension services. The digitalization of these sectors in the agriculture can be effective to help policymakers and farmers also to take decisions. Learning from successful countries, putting in place a system of monitoring and evaluating public investments and institutional reform is an important key. There are plenty of cross-country learning opportunities. Sudan, for example, and Tunisia can learn from Egypt's experience in implementing the energy subsidy reform program that has been applied in Egypt, and also the introduction of the cash transfer program. However, special emphasis should be put on fostering more the role of the private sector in the economic growth and in supporting the agri-food system sector, especially in the processing and marketing. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mariam, for the insightful presentation, and thank you for taking the lead over Professor Clemens, who could not be present with us today. Please forward our regards to him. Before moving to our third lead paper on the continuity of the situation analysis, we would like to open the floor for discussions, insights, or ideas our participants could have. Feel free to post them in the chat with in whatever language you feel comfortable, and feel free to express them by raising your hands in, again, whatever language that is preferable to you.
How does that?
Again, before moving to the third paper, the third paper presentation, we're taking questions and insights from our participants. If there are no questions, we can maybe move to paper number 3. So the continuity of our discussion on the situations analysis. And we're going to be talking about the role of trade and regional integration in the food security in the MENA region. And our speaker for this session is Dr. Martin, who's a former director in the Food Security Center at the American University of Beirut. Dr. Martin, the floor is yours.
It looks like Martin has not
joined yet, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are ahead of schedule by a few minutes. By 10 minutes exactly.
We could go to the plenary session and have more discussion.
Sorry, Professor?
I'm suggesting we move to the next session if they're ready, the plenary, rather the panel discussion.
Yes, but the next paper, the presenter is not there. Maybe we can move to the next presenter.
Which is, it is a panel discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
Zina, would you like to introduce it?
Okay, Sarah, thank you. So our next session is the panel discussion, where we will see the perspectives of the key stakeholders on trends and emerging issues affecting food systems in North Africa and Middle East. Our first speaker for the panel discussion will be Dr. Masoud Sulaiman Aboud Al-Azri, Director General of Planning Oman. Mr. Masoud, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this meeting, and actually I'm not really ready yet for the discussion. If we can move to the next one, and then I'll be ready, because I was just joining. Sorry for that.
Absolutely, Dr. Masoud.
No problem, Dr. Masoud. So if we can move to our second speaker, Mr. Abdulrahman Chef, the Ministry from the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Resources and Fisheries in Tunisia. Dr. Abdurrahman, can you please start your presentation now?
نعم. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
يعني المطلوب تدخل.
Dr. Abdurrahman, we can't hear you.
يعني ممكن نتكلم عربي؟ ها؟
تفضل.
بالفعل تفضل.
شكرا. أيوه. السلام عليكم. عبد الرحمن الشافعي من تونس، من وزارة الفلاحة وموارد المائية والصيد البحري. موضوع الأنظمة الغذائية ومستقبلها وكيفية جعلها يعني أكثر نزاعة وأكثر ديمومة وأكثر يعني خدمة المجموعة الوطنية والكون. يعني هي كانت موضوع اهتمام بعد ما تمت دعوة الأمم المتحدة للتفكير حول الموضوع هذا، ونحن حاليا منكبين على يعني التفكير في اطار مجموعات ضمت مختلف المتدخلين يعني من وزارات، بالرغم اللي احنا توا انا اتكلم من وزاره الفلاحه، لكن مختلف وزارات اخرى خاصه الصحه والتجاره والصناعه والبيئه، وحتى يعني دعونا وانضم الينا حتى زملاء يعني من وزارات كما وزاره الشؤون الاجتماعيه ووزاره الثقافه والتربيه. هذا اقتناعا منا ان موضوع الانظمه الغذائيه هو موضوع شامل، يعني لا يقتصر على موضوع الانتاج الفلاحي والزراعي، بالرغم اللي الانتاج الزراعي هو عنصر هام جدا للوصول الى هذا الاهداف، يعني أنظمة غذائية تكون ذات جدوى ومردودية وديمومة. وفي بداية الجلسات التي تم تنظيمها أخيرا تم يعني التشاور حول المواضيع اللي هي تهم يعني أكثر، اللي عندها يعني أهمية بالنسبة لتونس، وانحصر التفكير حول 3 مجالات يعني سنتعمق فيها، وهي تتعلق ب يعني التشجيع وتطوير والاهتمام خلينا نقولوا بالأنظمة الغذائية المحلية، لأنه أكيد يعني كباقي دول العالم يعني كل دولة وكل مجموعة إنسانية عندها تقاليد قديمة في توفير غذائها بالاعتماد على موارد محلية. ممكن يعني الأنماط الغذائية ابتعدت نوعا ما على هذه الأنماط، واحنا خلات ان الانماط الغذائيه دي تعتمد على بعض المنتوجات المورده والتكنولوجيات المورده، وفي حين انه البديل متوفر محليا. ولا من هنا يعني حتى الارقام تدل على ذلك، يعني انه عندنا احنا في تونس الحبوب يعني نسميوها القمح الصلب، يعني الديورم هذا اللي هو يمكن من بين مميزات الانتاج الفلاحي في تونس، هذا يعني الاستهلاك نتاعو يعني في طور التقلص نوعا ما لصالح حبوب اخرى اللي هي ليست من اختصاص الزراعه التونسيه، بل هي مورده اكثر شيء يعني. وهذا فيه مثلا الحبوب القمح اللين السوفت الحبوب اللين، ولا حتى المايس الذره مايس الذره اللي هي الاستعمال التغذيه الحيوانيه. ومن هنا نجعل انه الانماط الغذاء اصبحت يعني ممكن مش متلائمه، والامكانيات المحليه اللي هي الامكانيات يعني متوفره، ممكن هو توجيه وتاطير واكثر عمل على مختلف المستويات. واحنا كيف قلنا جميع الاطراف عليها ان تتدخل في هذا المجال، بما في ذلك حتى مجال البحوث ومجال التكوين والتثقيف وارشاد المزارعين حتى يعني ينكبوا ولا يتوجهون الى مثل هذه الازراع. هذا يعني حبيت الموضوع الاول هو الانماط الغذائيه مش تقليديه، اما هي المعتمده اكثر على الموارد المحليه، ومن هنا ممكن حتى على مستوى الوطن العربي ولا على مستوى شمال افريقيا فيه ميزات، انه في بعض المجموعات اللي اشتغلت على يعني النمط الغذائي المتوسط اللي هو خاص بمنطقه البحر الابيض المتوسط، اللي هي مش كان شمال افريقيا، حتى بعض البلدان جنوب اوروبا يعني عندها النمط هذا اللي هو يعني يعتمد مثلا على زيت الزيتون، يعتمد على الاجبان المحليه زاد، مش الاجبان يعني فيه تربيه الماعز وفيه يعني اجبان انواع اخرى. هذه الفكره يعني، هذه الموضوع الاول. الموضوع الثاني هو يعني استدامه الانماط الغذائيه، وهنا يعني استدامتها حتى تكون يعني منتبهه لبعض الموارد اللي هي نعتبر خاصه المياه اللي تعتبر تونس من بين الدول يعني يعني اللي هي محدوده الموارد المائيه، ولا بد يعني من الاهتمام على الاهتمام بهذا الموضوع، حتى انه توفير الغذاء يعني هو مش توفيره فقط، يعني هو النمط الغذائي يكون ياخذ بعين الاعتبار موضوع الاستدامه في توفير هذا النمط. ولو لما نقول نمط غذائي ممكن جزء منه مورد، لكن لابد من يكون فيه يعني منتبهين، لانه المورد حتى هو في بعض الاحيان يفقدنا نوع من الاستدامه، وفيه من يقول انه يفقدنا نوع من يعني السوفرينتي، يعني اللي نقولوا معناتها الاستقلاليه. ومن هنا لابد من الانتباه على الموضوع هذا. وهنا اكيد فما جميع معناها مجالات مختلفه للاهتمام، بدايه كما قلت من البحوث واكتشاف يعني الموارد المحليه المتاحه. والموضوع الثالث هو تقويه الامكانيه يعني التصرف في الصدمات، يعني لما تكون هذه الريزيليونس يعني التصرف في الازمات. وكما شفنا السنه هذه مع يعني جائحه الكورونا، يعني كان لابد وهذا على مستوى مختلف الدول لابد يكون فيه اليات للتاقلم السريع مع المستجدات وحمايه الانماط الغذائيه. وهذا نفس الشيء يتطلب تنظيمات، يتطلب يعني اكيد بعض المؤسسات المتخصصه، وكذلك التأقلم مع كما قلت يعني الموارد المتاحه على مستوى الوطن او الجهه. هذا يعني خلاصه اللي احنا توصلنا اليها الى حد الان. والاسبوع المقبل سيكون لنا يعني نشاط مكثف حتى نتعمق مع مختلف الاطراف يعني المشاركه حول هذه المواضيع. وشكرا.
شكرا أستاذ عبد الرحمن الشافعي. Dr. Masoud Sulaiman, are you ready for the presentation, or should we move to Mr. Amrani Abdelhaq?
No, yes, I am ready. I can also present like what Professor Abdulrahman presented.
Perfect.
And I will speak in Arabic as well.
مرحبا.
إن شاء الله. السلام عليكم جميعا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بداية يسعدني ويطيب لي أن أتحدث إليكم في هذا اليوم في هذا اللقاء الاجتماع الإسفيري التشاوري، شاكرا المنظمة العربية للتنمية الزراعية ومنتدى الجامعات اتحاد الجامعات الإفريقية على هذه الدعوة وهذا الاجتماع الذي يسبق اللقاء التشاوري أو الاجتماع التحضيري لقمة الأمم المتحدة للنظم الغذائية، حيث ستسلط القمة التي ستعقد فعالياتها في نيويورك في خريف 2021 الضوء على أبرز التحديات التي تواجه واقع ومستقبل النظم الغذائية بالعالم أجمع، وتكثيف الجهود لإيجاد الحلول العملية لتلك التحديات على المستوى العالمي والإقليمي والمحلي. مصطلح النظم الغذائية يشير إلى مجموعة الأنشطة التي ينطوي عليها إنتاج الأغذية ومعالجتها ونقلها واستهلاكها. فالنظم الغذائية كما تعلمون تمس كل جانب من جوانب الوجود البشري، وتؤثر سلامة وجودة الأغذية أو سلامة وجودة أنظمتنا الغذائية وتأثيرها تأثيرا عميقا على صحة أجسامنا وكذلك على صحة بيئتنا واقتصادنا وثقافاتنا. وعندما تعمل النظم الغذائية بشكل جيد فإنها تصبح قادرة على توحيد صفوفنا كأسر ومجتمعات محلية وأمم. هناك العديد من النظم الغذائية في العالم لا تزال هشة ولم تتناول بالدراسة ومعرضة للانهيار كالذي اختبرناه أو اختبره ملايين الأشخاص في جميع أنحاء العالم بشكل مباشر أثناء جائحة فيروس كورونا كوفيد-19. وعندما تضطرب الأنظمة الغذائية فإن النتائج الناجمة عن ذلك تؤثر على صحتنا واقتصادنا وتعليمنا، فضلا عن حقوق الإنسان والسلام والأمن. وكما هو الحال في حالات عديدة يكون الفقراء بالفعل هم الأكثر تضرراً. والخبر السار هو أننا نعرف ما نحتاج إلى القيام به للعودة إلى المسار الصحيح، ويتفق العلماء على أن تحويل أنظمتنا الغذائية من أفضل الطرق لتغيير المسار وإحراز تقدم نحو تحقيق جميع أهداف التنمية المستدامة. وستمكننا من المحافظة على النظم الغذائية المحلية، ونحن جميعا جزء من النظام الغذائي، ولذلك يجب علينا جميعا أن نتضافر لتحقيق ذلك. السلطنة ولله الحمد ونتيجة تضافر جهود الجميع حققت تقدم في مؤشر الأمن الغذائي، والذي يشمل توافر الغذاء وجودته وسلامته، حيث جاءت في المركز الثاني عربيا والرابع والثلاثون عالميا في النسخة التاسعة من مؤشر الأمن الغذائي العالمي لعام 2020 في التقرير الذي أصدرته وحدة المعلومات لمجلة الإيكونومست البريطانية. وللتحضير لقمة الأمم المتحدة للنظم الغذائية نظمت السلطنة اجتماعين لحد الآن على المستوى المحلي. جمعت هذه الاجتماعات جميع الأطراف المعنية بإنتاج الغذاء من الحكومة والقطاع الخاص ومؤسسات المجتمع المدني والأفراد من مزارعين وصيادين. وناقش المجتمعون أثناء الاجتماع عدة مسارات. كان المسار الأول ضمان حصول الجميع على طعام مأمون ومغذي، وكان النقاش يتمحور حول كيفية تأمين غذاء صحي وآمن وبأسعار في متناول يد الجميع، كيفية القضاء على الجوع وسوء التغذية، كيفية الحد من الإصابات بالأمراض المعدية، ما هي العقبات المتوقعة التي نعتقد أنها ستقف في تحقيق ما ذكر، وما هي الحلول الممكنة في نظرنا لتجاوز تلك العقبات. أما المسار الثاني فكان التحول في أنماط الاستهلاك المستدامة، وناقش المجتمعون في هذا المسار كيفية تحقيق الاكتفاء الذاتي من بعض الأغذية الأساسية، كيفية جعل الأغذية المحلية ذات قيمة وجودة، تحديد الطرق المختلفة لإعادة استخدام الموارد الغذائية وإعادة تدويرها لإنتاج منتجات صحية ومغذية وبأقل التكاليف. ما هي المقترحات في نظر المجتمعون للقضاء على الإسراف في استهلاك الأغذية؟ بالنسبة للمسار الثالث، ناقش المجتمعون تعزيز الإنتاج ذي الأثر الإيجابي على الطبيعة، وتمحور النقاش حول هذا المسار في كيفية الاستفادة من الموارد البيئية واستغلالها لإنتاج الأغذية ومعالجتها وتوزيعها، كيفية التقليل من فقدان التنوع الحيوي وتقليل التلوث والحد من تدهور التربة وانبعاث الغازات والاحتباس الحراري، كيفية المساعدة في وضع التسهيلات والدعم الفني للمزارعين والصيادين والمؤسسات الصغيرة العاملة في مجال الغذاء ونقله، كيفية الحد من الفاقد الغذائي. المسار الرابع كان يتمحور في تعزيز سبل العيش المنصفة، وناقش المجتمعون فيه كيفية تعزيز العمالة الماهرة والمنتجة للقضاء على الفقر، ما هي الطرق للحد من المخاطر للفئات الفقيرة، ما هي المشاريع التي يمكن تنظيمها لمساعدة هذه الفئة، وكيفية مواجهة الأزمات عن طريق توفير الحماية الاجتماعية وضمان النظم الغذائية. أما المسار الخامس فكان بناء القدرة على الصمود في مواجهة الضعفات والصدمات والضغوط، وناقشنا فيه كيفية ضمان استمرار العمل تحت الظروف القاسية والكوارث الطبيعية كالذي نعايشه حاليا مع كوفيد-19، كيفية حماية الإمدادات الغذائية من آثار الأوبئة، كيفية تمكين الجميع من مواجهة المخاطر والتعافي منها، وكيفية توفير الأمن الغذائي والتغذية السليمة بشكل عادل حتى أمام أصعب التحديات. وخرج المجتمعون حقيقة بنقاش معمق حول هذه المحاور، وإن في الفترة بين الاجتماعين استمر النقاش فيما بين جميع من شارك. عدد المشاركون من أنحاء السلطنة بلغ 60 مشارك، مثل ما أسلفت سابقا يمثلون كل أطراف الإنتاج الغذاء، وبفضل الله نحن الآن بصدد إعداد التقرير النهائي لذلك، وقريبا إرساله للمنظمي الحوار في الأمم المتحدة بعون الله، والحوار طبعا بالشراكة أيضا مع المكتب الإقليمي للمنظمة الأغذية والزراعة الفاو، والذي يوجه لهم أيضا الشكر من هذا المنبر على تعاونهم في تسهيل الحوارات والخروج بتوصيات مهمة جدا نأمل أن يكون لها أثر كبير على السلسلة الغذائية في السلطنة بعون الله. أشكر لكم جميعا هذا الاجتماع، والذي لا شك سيفيدنا في تعديل مسارات إنتاج الغذاء في السلطنة بإذن الله تعالى. شكرا لكم.
شكرا أستاذ مسعود. We have a hand that is risen for a question, but before moving to the questions, we'll ask for our third and final panelist, Dr. Amrani Abdelhaq from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in Algeria, to maybe share his thoughts on this panel about perspectives and key stakeholders on trends and emerging issues affecting the food system in the MENA region. Dr. Amrani Abdelhaq, لكم الكلمة. I see that Dr. Abdelhaq is here, but I think he's frozen. I can see a mic or a camera next to him. So maybe he's facing technical difficulties. If you can hear us, please feel free to send a message on the chat. And meanwhile, I think we can take the question from Mr. Adil. If you have a question or an intervention, please unmute yourself and you can speak.
Hello, everybody. As a matter of fact, it's not a question, but it is just a comment, and I want to say it in Arabic. أحب أن أقول أنه أنا سعيد جدا بأن أسمع إلى مداخلتين في اللغة العربية في هذا الاجتماع، وهذا حقيقة مصدر سعادة بالنسبة لي. وهذا إن دل على شيء فإنما يدل على أنه يعني الريفورم يهتم حقيقة بكل لغات المشاركين حقيقة في المنبر. هذه هي فقط مداخلة بسيطة أحببت أن أقولها، وشكرا جزيلا.
شكرا أستاذ علي على المداخلة ديالكم. I don't know whether Mr. Martin is with us or not yet. I think not. So unless advised separately, I think we can move to the breakout sessions. What do you think, Zainab?
Yes, I think I was about to ask Francis the question. Should we move forward to the breakout sessions?
If maybe there aren't any questions or hands that are risen.
It might be questions, comments. This is a dialogue, so we would appreciate some interactions. Feel free, please, to raise your hand or to put your comment questions on the chat.
There was actually a question before from Florence. Maybe one of our three speakers from the session number 2 on the situation analysis can speak about how the question from Florence was, how can we enhance indigenous knowledge as opposed to supplanting what local populations know and understand for production? So do you have any insights or any advice on how the indigenous knowledge can be monetized and enhanced?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is Ali Musa. This is Ali Musa from Arab Organization for Agricultural Development. I'm going to speak in Arabic, for it is a question from AOD to our member state that has already presented some thought here. أنا إخوة من تونس والإخوة من سلطنة عمان مشكورين جزيل الشكر على المشاركة والمساهمة في هذا اللقاء وهذا النقاش. ولكن أنا لدي تساؤل، إلى أي مدى نحن جاهزون لتطوير الأنظمة الغذائية على مستوى دولنا الأعضاء؟ وحقيقة كل النقاط التي أشاروا لها هي من النقاط المهمة جدا في تطوير أنظمة الغذاء وزيادة الريزيلينت بتاعها أو قدرتها على التأقلم والاستمرارية لهذه الأنظمة. ولكن هنالك بعض النقاط المهمة التي أود أن أرى فيها بعض الإجابات. ما هي الترتيبات يعني المؤسساتية التي وضعت على مستوى الدولة حتى تضمن استمرار هذه الأنظمة بشكل يعني مستمر؟ يعني ما هي الانستتيوشنال سيت اب اللي عملتها الدولة على أساس أنها تراقب هذه الأنظمة؟ الحاجة الثانية والمهمة جدا، هل هنالك financial arrangement انها يعني تاسيس مثل هذه الانظمه والمحافظه على الديمومه بتاعتها يتطلب توفير مع الموارد الماليه الضروريه حتى تستمر هذه الاداره بشكل طيب. وايضا يعني السياسات، ما هي الاجهزه المسؤوله من رسم السياسات التي تضمن، يعني نحن نعرف تماما انه الانظمه تبدا من انظمه الغذاء تبدا من مستوى الانتاج وحتى الاستهلاك، مرورا بالتصنيع، مرورا بالتجاره والتوزيع لهذه المنتجات. وهذا يعني يحتاج لبعض التشريعات على مستوى الدول حتى نضمن انه نحن كدول مهتمه بتطوير انظمه الاغذيه بتاعتها نضمن الاستمراريه. لابد من انه الثلاثه اشياء دي نديها اهتمام الترتيبات على مستوى المؤسسات او الانستتيوشنال ارينجمنت والترتيبات الماليه الضروريه لاستمراريه هذا العمل، وما هي يعني الترانسفورميشن، يعني ما هي يعني على مستوى أنظمة الإنتاج وأنظمة الحفظ للغذاء وتصنيع الغذاء وكده محتاجين تكنولوجيكال ترانسفورميشن. فما هي الأشياء التي يعني لو تفضلتم مشكورين، يعني شنو يعني دولنا الأعضاء اللي عملته أو على الأقل وضعته في تصورها لتطوير نظام الغذاء؟ مشكورين.
شكرا جزيلا. هل تسمحوا لي بالمداخلة؟
تفضل أستاذ مسعود.
شكرا أخي علي من السودان، أعتقد من المنظمة العربية. نعم، أنا أتفق معه أنه لضمان استمرارية الأنظمة الغذائية لابد من وجود تشريعات لحمايتها، لابد من وجود تعاون بين الحكومة والقطاع الخاص ومنظمات المجتمع المدني، الجمعيات الزراعية، المزارعين. هذا حقيقة ما يحدث في السلطنة الآن. هناك مراجعة لكل التشريعات والقوانين التي تضمن سهولة وتيسير وصول الغذاء للمستهلك، وفي البداية طبعا تضمن إنتاجه. هناك الكثير أيضا من التشريعات في مراقبة الأسعار على مستوى الدولة لحماية المنتجين وحماية طبعا المستهلكين. أيضا الاحتياط الغذائي لم تغفله السلطنة، فهناك الكثير من صوامع الحبوب على مستوى الموانئ الرئيسية. هناك العديد من المخازن موزعة على المحافظات، والتي تضمن توفر الغذاء في حالة الأزمات. هناك أيضا نظام مشترك بين الحكومة والقطاع الخاص بما يضمن أيضا ديمومة توفير الغذاء، خصوصا الغذاء القادم من الخارج المستورد. أيضا أعتقد أن الكثير من التشريعات مثل ما أشرت والكثير من المساعدة للمزارعين تجري على الأرض بالنسبة للتقنيات الحديثة، سواء على مستوى البحوث الزراعية أو على مستوى أيضا الجمعيات الزراعية، والتي لها علاقات مع الخارج لنقل التقنيات وإدخال طبعا مثل أنظمة الري الحديثة والميكنة الزراعية. أيضا هناك توجه الآن لدى الحكومة ممثلة بوزارة الثروة الزراعية في الاستثمار في الأراضي الزراعية، فتح باب الاستثمار، تسهيل الحصول على تصاريح حفر الآبار للمياه وغيرها، وبالتالي هذا يضمن الحصول على إنتاج غذائي. التركيز أيضا على بعض التركيبة المحصولية لبعض المنتجات الغذائية وبعض المحاصيل التي تجود في السلطنة ومتأقلمة والتي لها قيمة اقتصادية أيضا، وبالتالي ضمان إنتاج غذاء على الأقل ولو بنسب معينة لنضمن الاكتفاء الذاتي من بعض المحاصيل الزراعية. فأعتقد هذا ما عملته السلطنة، وأنا متأكد أكيد العديد من الدول العربية تقوم بذات النهج أو تنهج ذات النهج، وخصوصا أيضا دول الخليج، دول مجاورة لنا، يعني تنهج ذات النهج بالتأكيد. شكرا.
شكرا على المداخلة أستاذ مسعود. And as a continuity, and before giving the floor to different present hands, it's for Mr. Ali. There is also a panel, or sorry, a breakout session that could be of interest to you, namely group number 2, in which we'll be discussing technological arrangements for the strengthening of food systems. So maybe it would be of interest for you to join that breakout session eventually. So we have 2 hands that were risen, Zinab. I guess the first one was Ustad Mus'ad Hassanin. لكم الكلمة. أستاذ مسعد.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
الحقيقة بداية بشكركم جزيلا على الدعوة لهذا الاجتماع الهام. في كلمة مقتضبة وسريعة، مصر قامت بدور كبير جدا في موضوع استدامة النظم الغذائية، وأصدرت قانون للزراعة العضوية وبعض الأكتيفيتي والأنشطة الخاصة بالزراعة الذكية ومراقبة جودة الغذاء وزيادة كفاءة استخدام المياه والإنذار المبكر، آليات استخدام الإنذار المبكر، وأشياء كثيرة جدا في مجال إنتاج الغذاء وتداوله حتى للاستخدام الآدمي. الحقيقة بالنسبة للقمة بشكل عام، في بعض الحاجات زي ما اتقال في الفيرست برزنتيشن والسكند برزنتيشن، ان الأنظمة الغذائية تعتبر أنظمة معقدة جدا ترتبط بالتربة والمية والنبات والحيوان وكل النواحي اللي هي الخاصة بالموارد اللي لها علاقة بالإنتاج الزراعي. الحقيقة أنا متخوف من ربطها بالنظم البيئية وتحقيق أهداف الألفية وإضافة الجانب البيئي للزراعة، خاصة إن إحنا في ظل الظروف الحالية والزراعة المكثفة واستخدام كل التكنولوجي، ومع ذلك حوالي مليار نسمة على مستوى العالم بيعاني من الجوع والفقر. التخوف الثاني اللي هو الخلط ما بين موضوع قمة الغذاء واتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الخاصة بالمناخ، ودوت بيخلي الزراعة تتحمل أعباء كبيرة جدا، وهي لها جانب إيجابي كبير جدا على البيئة وعلى الميتيجيشن بتاع غازات الاحتباس الحراري والكربون سكوستريشن، وكأن الزراعة هي والغذاء هم المتسببين في المشكلة. يعني أعتقد إن احنا يجب إن احنا نبص للموضوع ده بنظرة شمولية ونضع أولويات خاصة بتوفير الغذاء ومكافحة الجوع، ونركز على الجانب اللي هو خاص بإنتاج الغذاء، وخاصة إن في جوانب مهملة بشكل كبير جدا في القمة. المسارات الخمسة لم تركز إطلاقا على المياه وعلاقتها بالتنمية الزراعية المستدامة وزيادة كفاءة استخدام المياه والحاجات اللي هي التكنولوجي اللي لها علاقة بالووتر يوز افيشنسي، بالإضافة إلى التكنولوجيات الزراعية النو هاو اللي هو خاص بالابليكيشنز الخاص بالفود سيستم ترانسفورميشن. معظم الدول لا تمتلك مثل هذه التكنولوجيات. إزاي هيتم تناول أو تداول ونقل هذا التكنولوجي للأقلمة مع النظم الجديدة وحمايتها واستمرارها وتمويلها، وإيه الضمانات في مرحلة التحول؟ كل دي أسئلة بتجول في خاطري، خاصة إن الوضع الغذائي هاش بشكل كبير جدا في ظل الفلكتويشن، الكلايمت فلكتويشن والفاريابيليتي الخاص بالتغيرات المناخية والهيت ويفز كل شوية والكولد ويفز، ودي كلها تأثيرات على الأنظمة الغذائية. فهو الغذاء والزراعة والإنتاج الغذائي وسلاسل الغذاء عشان نحقق كل الأهداف الخاصة بالتنمية والمحاور المختلفة، ده أعتقد إن هو يكاد يكون ليس صعبا، قد يكون مستحيلا. فأعتقد التركيز على المياه والإنتاج الغذائي ونعزز الدور اللي هو خاص بالبيئة بشكل ليس اللي هو البريوريتي الأولى، ولكن إنتاج الغذاء وكفاءته وجودته هو الأفضل والأهم كأولوية بالنسبة لكل الناس، لأن الغذاء بالنسبة للإنسان حياة. شكرا جزيلا.
Ustad Musad, thank you so much for sharing the Egyptian experience, and thank you for your reminders and insights. There was another hand that was risen by Si Abdurrahman.
عفوا.
شكرا. لا أنا حبيت يعني يعطي إضافة. هو زميلي مسعود من السلطنة أجاب على تساؤلات أخينا من المنظمة العربية للتنمية الزراعية فيما يخص التشريعات والمؤسسات وإلى غير. أنا حبيت أضيف شيء، هو أنه هذه كانت لنا فرصة، يعني الدعوة اللي عملتها الأمم المتحدة للتفكير حول أنظمة ولا أنماط الغذاء في مختلف دول العالم والسبل لتطويرها وتنميتها هي كانت فرصة للتفكير يعني حول ما يمكن إضافة يعني شنو البرامج الإضافية اللي ممكن نطورها. وكما قال الأستاذ مسعود يعني احنا في مختلف دولنا يعني مشتغلين على الموضوع هذا، لكن حاليا يعني نظرا لبعض المستجدات وخاصة التغيرات المناخية والأوضاع الاقتصادية والاجتماعية في مختلف دولنا يعني كان لابد من التفكير حول كيفية مزيد استغلال الموارد المتاحة محليا يعني. ولما نقول موارد يعني لابد من النظر إلى كلمة موارد بصفة يعني شاملة، لا مش كان المياه والتربة لابد أن ننظر جدا للموارد البشرية يعني. احنا اليوم في دولنا عندنا يعني مزارعين ممكن ما عندهمش كفاءة متطورة باش يشتغلوا بالكفاءة اللازمة والإنتاج وإلى غير ذلك. عندنا شباب متخرج من الجامعات يعني لكن يفقد مثلا إمكانية أنه يكون عنده أراضي ولا يكون عنده حيازة نقولوا احنا لتطوير نشاط ولتوفير منتوج زراعي يكون يعني متأقلم وإلى غير ذلك. احنا هذا من الجوانب ممكن في السابق ما خممناش فيهم، وانا هذا رايي انا خاص كمحله وهذا اللي قاعدين نقولوا فيه في تونس، ولا بد يعني للانتباه على هذه الجوانب هذه. ممكن هي حجمها مش كبير لكن يظهر لنا اللي هو مش كبير اليوم، لكن ممكن في المستقبل لو نهتم بالجوانب هذه لا يكون عنده يعني دور فعال وكبير في تطوير الانظمه الغذائيه وتطوير الغذاء على المستوى المحلي وبلوغ الاهداف بتاع الاستدامه و هذه الاضافه اللي حبيت نعملها وشكرا.
Thank you so much for bringing life to this dialogue, Dr. Shafi. We have another hand that is risen by Dr. Cisse. We can hear you if you can unmute your mic.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I am not asking a question per se, but I would really want to highlight some of the points that I have been hearing since the start of the program. First of all, I must admit that this is a very, very interesting program, and I cannot overemphasize the interest that the Islamic Development Bank have in this kind of a forum. Our focus is how we can help our member countries to develop from strength to strength, but in more specific terms, we want to address food system and food security in our member countries, as well as the supply chain. I come from the agriculture sector of the bank, and one might think I'm biased. But then coming to the points I want to raise, I think when I had all these deliberations, one of the few things which comes to my mind is our education system in the universities. In the past, students, we are just going to school, we go to universities because we are opportune to go to universities, but the disciplines we study are not disciplines that we may really want to study, but because this is all what is available for us, or this is the opportunity we had. But I think today the system is completely different. And I have no doubt our professors here who are more conversant with the university system would definitely understand this. I think agriculture is no more a mere farming or production of food, but it is more of a business. And I think the image we portray during our conferences, during our summits, during our dialogues with regards to agriculture is what needs to encourage and attract our younger generation to agriculture. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was attending an online conference, and then one of the young ladies who is an entrepreneur in agriculture was bitterly against the images that we even present in our slides during the presentation when it comes to agriculture. We'll portray a very old farmer in the village or a hungry farmer in the village who looks so tired or so desperate, and we try to depict that as an image of agriculture instead of showing a vibrant entrepreneur in agriculture value chain. And unless and until our youth are encouraged and are convinced that agriculture is not just a mere production of food, but you will produce food, you will add value to it, and then you'll gain income, I think this is something that is going to still be a problem. And IDB, for sure, is into global value chain. In West Africa, for example, right now we have a program called Regional Agriculture Value Chain. It's not just producing rice, but producing rice and add value to rice production. And this is going in tandem with supporting women in small and medium enterprises, where we have been working with WIFI, which is a World Bank initiative in the US. We were able to gain $11 million US for countries, including Senegal, Guinea-Conakry, Niger, and Sierra Leone. And in addition to individual country programs that the IDB is financing in each of these countries. The second point is these are things which no single entity can do all by yourself. And I have highlighted this, if you remember in my brief statement, whatever Islamic Development Bank is doing, we are doing it in collaboration with our sister entities, multilateral development banks, international agencies like the Forum, IFAD, UN and UN agencies. We have to come together hand in glove to make sure that we tackle this food security problem in our member countries or in the world at large. But more so in Africa, Middle East, and North Africa. Or I could generalize it to say sub-Saharan Africa. This is a serious thing, but no single entity has it all. And we must come together to make sure that at least we tackle this problem. The third point I want to highlight here is that I think our approach to agriculture has now passed the traditional method of producing food for food security purposes, but we want to make sure that we go into agriculture value chain. We must try to give attention to agriculture value chain, which will provide us food kits, food security. It will ensure this food supply chain. At the same time, it will ensure income to the farmers, particularly the smallholder farmer. Because at the end of the day, even if the farmer produce enough food, and yet still there is no income, what is the point? What is the point? I can give an example. In some countries in Southern Africa, I remember at one time in Malawi, the government pampered the farmers so much to produce maize. At the end of the day, they produced so much maize that, they had to do away with it because they have excess, more than what they need to consume. And yet still, they couldn't have the potential market to sell the excess. So these are some of the things our focus should now look into to make sure that at least we go into agriculture value chain. And this is what can strengthen our member countries. This is what can lift our smallholder farmers and create a platform of financial resources for them, rather than being completely dependent. So as for now, these are some of the points I really want to raise. And I think this forum is a very interesting forum. The discussions are very important. And I think by the time we close, some of the recommendations and conclusions I'm beginning to see here would definitely give us a better insight of where to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Momodou. Thank you so much for these informations and your comments. If Dr. Amrani is not here, perhaps we can move to the breakout session. Francis?
I think let's just give.
Yeah, no. I think Amrani is there.
So let's just give him a few seconds, maybe. Dr. Amrani, your microphone is on mute.
Yeah, no. I think Amrani is there. So let's just give him a few seconds, maybe. Dr. Amrani, your microphone is on mute.
I think let's just give him a few seconds, maybe. Dr. Amrani, your microphone is on mute.
He may be having difficulty.
Yes. Yeah. He doesn't seem to receive messages either, so I think he certainly must be having technical difficulties. Maybe we can give him a few more seconds and then move into the breakout groups.
Just for the record, Dr. Amrani Abdelhaq is head of studies at the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in Algeria, and he will also present, like the others, the perspectives of key stakeholders on trends and emerging issues affecting food system in the MENA region.
So we shall see how to get in touch with him and share his presentation maybe with the participants. So we can go to the next session.
Absolutely, thank you so much, Francis. So our next session is a 30 minutes breakout group activity where we'll be discussing how to strengthen food systems transformation. So for the logistics of it, we have 3 separate breakout sessions, 3 separate groups. So in a little while, you're going to see a little pop-up on your screen and you can select which group to join. So in group number 1, our moderator is Rachel Bond, and she will be moderating a group about strengthening food systems, research and innovation, what new frontiers are needed. Group number 2 is moderated by Zineba Gisoul, and the group is about technological arrangements for strengthening food systems. And the third group is moderated by Dr. Nurhan Abdallah, and the session will be about institutional arrangements. So I'll leave it to the different moderators to kindly present their panel speakers. And I think without further ado, I'll leave you to join the groups, the breakout group that you'd like to take part in. If you cannot see a pop-up, please go to the little menu at the bottom. Next to record, you have an icon saying Breakout Rooms. So click on that, and you should be able to select the room you would like to go to.
Sarah, I think not everyone has the pop-ups for the breakout session. Myself as well, I can see the...
Okay, Zineb, just check on, click on the more. If the screen is small, you will see the word breakout, and then 3 rooms will be displayed. But now I'm also going to be sending people to different rooms, and then they can change the room if they are not interested in that one.
So to join different rooms based on the subject that most interests you, again, as David was just saying, in the menu below, next to where you can mute and activate your mic, right at the middle, there is an icon for breakout rooms.
No, there is a pop-up for the technological arrangement, but this is the group 2, but we couldn't see the group 3 and group 1.
I think you might want to scroll down and up.
Yes, you should be able to, yes. You can also see the option to leave the room and rejoin another one. You can change your room. I've just assigned some people who are delaying to move, but you can change the room in case you are not interested. You need to accept when I assign you a room, you have to accept such that you can join, because everybody right now has assigned rooms except the hosts.
What we'll be doing, let's join different groups and tell them those ones who have not yet joined to join.
Those ones who have not joined, they will remain here with us. So we can just monitor them when they come out, and then we send back them to the room. Like everybody right now have assigned.
But there are those who are there without green, without.
Yes, but
for example,
they are assigned. You can point.
Yeah, they are assigned.
Yes, so they have to accept.
So they need to hear us so we can. Okay, Nada is now accepted.
And they can only hear us when we are here. When we are here, they are able to hear us. So,
David, are you still assigning participants to the breakout rooms?
I've already assigned all of them.
I can still
see. As you can see, like starting from Amrani is already assigned, yes. But he has to accept. I have assigned him breakout room 3.
Okay, that's why it's grayed out. But I see there are other people still here in the lobby type of thing, right?
All of them are assigned.
Okay, great.
Belal Ali is also already assigned to room 2.
Okay,
but
I get
he
it.
has to accept.
I understood. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Then I'll join a room myself.
Okay. You feel free. You can join.
And you can join and then you come out and join another one like that and keep seeing what's happening in other groups.
Okay.
Now I'm back.
Yes, Dr. Ali Musa, you can choose the room you want.
Okay.
You have 3 rooms. You can join any you want.
Yeah, join breakout rooms and it will give me the same. You have been assigned to the breakout room, that technological arrangement.
So would you like to accept that?
You can accept that.
But I want to represent the Arab organization on this institutional arrangement.
Okay, so we take you to institutional arrangement.
Yeah.
Yes, we have moved you there. So just accept and join the room.
Okay.
Great. He has accepted. So he's now in institutional arrangement.
Yes, Kamalindi. You've not joined a breakout room. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Please join.
Kindly invite me again. How do I go to?
Which room do you want? 1, 2, strengthening food systems, technological arrangements or institutional arrangements?
Strengthening food systems research, 1.
Okay, that's where you need to just accept it. Yes, there is a section for breakout. If it is the screen is small, just click under more. You will see the word breakout rooms.
Okay.
Then you need to accept. Alternatively, I can move you to another room such that you can see it popping up.
Okay.
Okay, I've moved you to technological, but now I can move you back from technological. From technological to food. Okay, I will strengthening food systems.
Yeah.
So you should, so you should be able to see the pop-up now, and you accept to join.
You're doing that for Chris Imana?
No, Musad Kamaledin.
Okay. So, okay. But then there's also Chris Imana has not joined.
Yes, he's already moved to technological arrangements. He needs just to accept.
Are you there, Chris?
Yes, I am there, but I'm not seeing it pop up.
Which room would you want?
Chris,
the first one. The first one.
Okay.
Okay, I've moved you there. So you should see the pop-up and accept.
I can see now.
Okay, accept.
Accept.
Then Moise Amre, are you able to hear us? We have put you in technological arrangement. Is that where you want to be, or we take you somewhere?
Moise Amri. Musad Kamaleddin has not accepted. Maybe his network is not stable.
Can you try to put him to another room so he can see the pop-up again? Because I was seeing his camera on, I was seeing him.
Yes. So let me try to move him again to another one, technological arrangements. I hope he sees it now.
He's now in his technical arrangement still.
Yes, still I think he has not accepted.
And then like okay, you have accepted. Yes, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes. But Moise is Amri is not yet joined, and even Kamalin in Musad.
Yeah, and I assigned him 1, he did not respond. 2, he did not respond. So I think he's not checked. His network maybe is not stable. Belal Ali has not accepted also institutional arrangement.
Maybe they are not on their desks.
Maybe.
Okay, so that leaves just the 2 of them.
Yes.
Okay, I went to the last group and I see things happening. Let me join strengthening food system and see what's happening there.
Okay. Hello. Yes, please.
Yeah, that group is also okay. So, let me see. I got a technological arrangement. Let me try that one again. Hello, Dr. Abdullah. Hello. David, have you seen Amil Khalid? Because Sarah has been asking for him. He has not joined a group that he was supposed to. I think
he's not there.
And let me just.
I will send her a message.
It's an important problem. So, so these are issues that can be very important. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Rami. I think we are back on the main session. Thank you, Mrs. Fatiha, Mr. Rami, and Mr. Rami Boujaude for the very interesting site, and maybe we can wait for the others to join to finish our dialogue. Sarah?
I can hear you. I think we were at around 58 before we moved to the breakout session, but we've all been automatically pushed to the plenary here. Thank you for our great moderator for having managed the sessions. I hope the discussions were rich. Sure, they were rich. And we're going to hear now from our rapporteurs about their feedback from the breakout sessions. So I think we'll start with Florence, if you're ready. She's representing Group 1. Thank you, Florence. We have about 20 minutes to be split on 3. So let's do not sure how that gives us around 5 minutes, 5+ minutes per person. Thank you so much.
That will be enough for me. Thank you very much. Our group was looking at how we can strengthen food systems transformation, as it were. And the issues that emerged from this discussion is that food systems are interlinked and interconnected, and they move across the value chain. So whatever we do has to focus on from production to consumption, and all that we do, food systems and production need to be sustainable, and they have to focus on research and innovation to support development. Therefore, we need to compare the different aspects of the value chain for development. And there's need, in addition to research and innovation, for capacity building still across the value chain. We also noted in the group, in the discussions, that it is important that we adopt technology, science, technology, and innovations to local contexts within what is happening. Things like water harvesting, things like irrigation and precision agriculture based on the conditions of the local situation that the technologies are being applied. And we also looked at the use of, because we have diversified food systems, there are things like grey water being adopted, things like precision and water saving mechanisms. But we also noted in the discussion that there's need to have feasible technologies being adopted, and for all the technologies that are adopted, they should focus on how can they improve the income of the farmer. Smallholder farmers can only adopt these technologies if they make sense to them from the income perspective. We had also from the Islamic Development Bank that there's needs to promote partnerships and take advantage of the opportunities presented by the bank, including reverse linkages, where we can take our solutions to the bank so that they can be adopted for the different countries that they have in the bank. And they do have a unit that has been created, the Science and Technology Innovation Unit, that we can work with in terms of developing the different technologies. Thank you very much. I'll write this out.
Thank you so much, Florence. And that was the summary of the first group, which was about strengthening food systems research and innovation. We'll ask from our second rapporteur, Alice, to summarize what we discussed in group number 2, namely technological arrangements for strengthening food systems in the MENA region. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our group our group had 3 speakers, and we had a presentation from OCP and a presentation from the American University of Beirut, and then a presentation from Beritech, MENA. In our group, we were looking at value chain advancement, digital transformation, as well as entrepreneurship in agri-food value chains. So we learned in our group that if we have to drive agriculture and food systems transformation in Africa, there is need to co-build, innovate solutions, context-specific innovations, and create impact. And agriculture is a business, and therefore it should be treated as such. And then we had the privilege of learning about what OCP has been able to do across the continent of Africa, but specifically the example of Morocco. And we saw, which we agree, is that OCP has implemented fruitful impact on the continent. And for Morocco, agriculture is a key sector, which still has many challenges, such as water scarcity. But OCP has supported the sector through using an innovation business model, which is based on 5 pillars and looks at best class products and services, extension services, digital solutions, amongst others. And that OCP offers a multi-service implemented close to the farmers, such as soil analysis and offering new technologies. So this shows the need to work very closely to the farmers, and that we need to have a farmer-centric approach if we have to deliver customized solutions for a productive, profitable, and sustainable food system. And then we also saw that in order to transform food systems, there's need to understand the need of the farmers, tackle their priorities first. That's when we can have impact, adapt to the context. So in this case, the African context, build capacities and encourage investment in mobile technology, engage extended environment. And very quickly on digital transformation, we discussed that there are tremendous opportunities to address food systems in the Arab world as far as digital transformation is concerned. And this can help us address constraints along the entire value chain. The unfortunate thing that needs attention is that digitalization is rather economically focused instead of environmental or social. So this needs to be included in the planning in the future. So while we are lagging behind in digital technology, we can simply adopt what already exists to improve our food systems. And when it comes to entrepreneurship in agriculture value chain, again here, we agreed that there's a huge potential and many opportunities. And as universities, we should drive the change in innovation and reduce the focus on publications. And so at university level, things such as entrepreneurship clubs should be encouraged, multidisciplinary groups, so having teams that have multiple backgrounds, these yield better results. And also we need to push for more applied research and need to valorize the research outputs. Thank you very much. This is a summary from our group.
Thank you, Alice. As for the third group, we have Dr. Ali Elisa Moussa for telling us the feedback. Dr. Ali Elisa, the floor is yours.
Sorry, Zinab, I think Dr. Ali is going to be replaced by Emmanuel.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Ali replaced Professor Duheri, who was not around, so I'll be speaking for him. So we had initially planned for 3 presenters, but only 2 did present. The other was not able to connect. I think she had connection challenges. So from the Arab Organization for Agricultural Development, there were a few issues that were raised. And our discussion really focused on institutional and policy engagement to enable sustainable food systems. The first thing that came up was that the policy making and financing should be complementary to other institutions that exist within the country context. For example, we have diverse actors that operate. So we right from farmers to consumers. So the government has a role to identify and build the systems that enable the food system to function efficiently. And they also, there was a suggestion that the policy issues should focus on improving the enabling environment, including infrastructure that supports production, marketing, and farmers' access to land and other resources to sustain agriculture as a business. So the other challenges that farmers face, such as what we experienced during COVID-19, have a big hindrance to the functioning of the food system. And so the government has a role to ensure that they provide the right infrastructure and enabling environment for every actor to participate. And there was a suggestion also that the value chains are loose. And so it's government's role to make sure that the functioning of the different value chains are efficient so that everyone benefits. And it was also proposed that we need to take advantage of digital agriculture for production and marketing to boost nature positive production. The other intervention came from the Knowledge Economy Foundation, presented by Dr. Dora Fiani. And she gave a summary that what came out from the discussion is that we are experiencing common problems across the region, and we share these challenges. So what we need is to share the models and piggyback interventions on how best to address food system challenges. And then we also need to put in place structures to manage regional cooperation, which she gave examples of where it has worked in East and Southern Africa, as well as in Western Africa, so that we could learn from. And the other is there's a suggestion to provide a mechanism for lesson sharing and solutions to address these challenges. And lastly, she talked about bringing on board the private sector and using ICTs for enhancing the functioning of our food systems. There was a vast discussion, and some of the issues that came up was including examples of financial institutions and how they should function in helping strengthening the food systems. And there was an example given of contract farming, where government works with the trade unions, and it has been done with the Gum Arabic value chain in Sudan, where they have a specific buyers and government facilitates the process of production and purchasing. It was also mentioned that it's important for government to bring together the financial entities such as MasterCard and Visa to facilitate the use of ICTs to enable credit, because agriculture as a business should be based on credit. So because the major issue is financing, so it was suggested that the different financial intermediaries should be brought on board to support processes such as contract farming, youth business incubation at system level. And it was also given as an example that in Egypt, the issue or the solution of forming alliances across the region was helping to increase investment in R&D to overcome challenges of food imports, among others. But at national level also, it's important to create a harmonization of an enabling environment, including trade policies. Because, for example, in the World Trade Organization, there are various policies across countries which were hindering movement of food across countries. And we could take advantage of existing financing mechanisms. And finally, there was a suggestion that central banks across the region including in Africa, could develop national solutions that enable farmers and other actors in the food system to access credit at a lower cost to make farming viable. So that is all that came out from the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you so much. And now we'll move to the closing session where Dr. Anthony, Training and Community Development Manager at WooForum, will wrap up the emerging issues and talk about the next steps. Dr. Anthony, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I shall not attempt to take a very long time. We've already had quite a very extensive time together. The good thing, the last sessions have already been wrapped up. I would like to rather say from the next steps is really in terms of one, following up to do the draft report for submission to the UN Food System. Normally has a time frame limit of 10 days from the date of the meeting, which is today. So we need to submit that as soon as possible. So by 20th. The second issue will be following up with the different respective institutions that are represented here on several other potential partnership activities. We will be guided by the Executive Secretary at WooForum based on some of the things that have emerged and potential areas of partnership. From my side, really the key opening remarks that were provided by Professor Dipala, really centralizing the place of the food systems and how the food systems and the need for the food systems approach and collaboration to make it work. This is just a highlight of the different action tracks that are the basis for the consultations and really the need for universities to take leadership in championing the food systems. These were the expectations, but from the OAD, the key issue that was really emerging is that opportunity, or provides us the opportunity for responding and taking action in response to what the Arab Organization for Agricultural Development has as part of its strategic plan. And that is an anchoring upon which they can help ensure that it is further realized. So there is potential, there is opportunity, so there is alignment. The AUC provided a strong commitment to moving this and resolutions from the various country consultations to the continental level and present it to the line ministers. And therefore, there is opportunity to coalesce all this that we are doing now, and it is represented and presented at the continental level for inclusion, since the AUC is already undertaking some of these different consultations. A strong commitment from ISDB, really highlighting key issues on need for dealing with emergency action, committing resources, strategic plans, strengthening issue of collaboration, but also highlighting the key concern of developing value chains as some of the overarching issues that need to be attention to be paid to. So those four issues were very, very paramount within the conversation that was highlighted by Mamadou. Now, in terms of from Fidel, the key highlight was really issues around looking at how the need to generate new approaches that can help us deliver the food security more sustainably, but also ensure that we work with others to hold different conversations, but also work together, bringing youth, academia, private sector together, because these are central parts of the component to ensure that food systems and processes within it are able to move and run smoothly. We went to session 2, in which there were presentations, and there was quite a good, strong highlighting on this current systems in food system issues from in the MENA region, really highlighting the issue of the complexities and the complex of the food systems in the MENA region, but also highlighting that within this complex, there are a whole situation of rising malnutrition, stunting, while others are stunting and malnourished, others are overfed, leading to obesity as well as an overweight. So it's a conundrum of things within the sub-region that has a complex of issues around its food systems. We looked at highlights from IFPRI, looking at moving towards beyond the pandemic, and really looking at that what it created, it also created an opportunity for transforming the system itself. And within the food systems within the MENA region, the pandemic generally brought an additional burden on top of other crises, political transitions, and food imports that the country continuously struggles with. But agriculture and agri-food
We've definitely lost
yes,
Anthony. So let's be kind and give him a few minutes so that he can join again. Hello, Anthony. Hello, Mark.
Sorry,
we missed you for a minute there.
For some reason my internet dropped down, so I can't explain. But yeah, I've just managed to reconnect. So the real issue in here really being that also we need to integrate the private sector to take an active role in the food system if we are to grow the food system. So the role of the private, there were key issues here, really from really recognizing I would like to highlight the issue of the need for goods, because without which then it is difficult to realize a food systems transformation. And Alzuri highlighted the strong components and issues that within the context of the food system, there is really need to intensify the issues to enhance the productivity and performance of the food systems within the Arab world, and also transforming consumption patterns of people, because there is really, that is part of the underlying challenge, the transforming consumption patterns, but also dealing with the huge issue and challenge of the food. Really within this intervention, the 3-4 key issues. One, need for efficiency in agriculture, need to also encourage and attract young people into agriculture, so that agriculture it's beyond the ugly hand of the African hope, and so young people need to see it as attractive, strengthen collaboration, but also transition agriculture to the food value chains process, so that it unlocks the potential, the income part of the smallholder farmers. So breakout sessions have already been wrapped up. I will not go into that. Thank you very much. That's where I would like to stop.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, everyone, for this very, very rich exchange. I think today we are all understood the importance of the food security and the importance of working and going forward all together, because as Prof. Adipala said in the chat, that we need a collective and we need to work together, and we need to an engagement, and we need to do this all together for the global food to straighten the global food system. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for doing the presentation. Thank you for the speakers for all their insights. And also I would like to thank Sarah, my colleague, for helping me moderating this session. We will move forward to the closing remarks, but before I will give the floor to Sarah if she wants to say some words before we close up. Sarah, the floor is yours.
It was an utter pleasure interacting with all the speakers and panelists. We acknowledge their presence and the time they've given us today. Thank you for sticking to the end. And this is a great avant-goût of the summit itself and the coming discussions and coming dialogues. Professor, thank you for the honor you gave us by moderating this dialogue, and we'll give you la parole for all the closing remarks. Thank you so much, Professor.
I used to have a friend in Morocco, but he's no longer with us. And I too want to dedicate today's occasion to Yunus Berada. I'm sure he's very, very happy to see what has happened today. Our dream with Berada was to promote a stronger partnership between African institutions and the Arab world. That remains the dream that I, Sarah, Saineb, all of us need to keep going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate your participation. I have no words to say thank you to our main moderators. I have no words to say thank you to the other colleagues who moderated the breakout sessions. I just want to say thank you to all the speakers and the participants. And last and not least, our colleagues from the Arab Organization for Agricultural Development. Thank you for the opportunity to work together. God willing, we shall meet in Morocco. If not in Morocco, we shall meet in Benin in December this year. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep in touch. Let Allah bless you all. Thank you. Sukran. Yes.
Bro. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.